Shalom, shalom. Barakat Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to our apostles and elder bishops. Shalom to you, Akim. Okay. Name of this lesson is at a time when we need extreme faith, they squander the moment. Okay. The times, all right, that, you know, we're headed into, we need absolute faith. Okay. Because what we're up against um, is no joke. Okay, I'm gonna show y'all a clip soon. Just to give you, a visual um, that that these devils mean business. Hell, the Lord means business. Okay, and He put the spirit on this devil to accelerate, uh, the evils upon earth, so that he could, ready his coming with the armies of heaven. Okay, and what we're fighting for is something that you. I mean, we understand that the scriptures explain it, eternal life. Okay, um, it's hard to even try to elaborate. Living forever. Everlasting righteousness. You know, and having you know. Uh, fame or and glory, all right, in a new world, a perfect world. That's what's at stake here, okay. And at a time where we needed absolute, faith, we see that it's being squandered, of course, okay. And what I want to do was just, I got my points and I got precepts, you know, and we're gonna go into it, and I want to use First Corinthians 10 as, the backdrop of it, because it's dealing with the first Exodus and the wilderness and how Jake acted in the wilderness, and we're told to not be this way. We're warned to not be like our fathers in the wilderness who murmured, who shown the absolute, disrespect, disregard, rebellion. All right, and they were just an unfaithful generation. All right, it's much of the same thing in the time that we live in now. You know, but this is the time where we're supposed to show extreme faith. We're supposed to believe and just outright believe, man. Okay. And blessed is the man that what believeth and have not seen. We ain't seen nothing. I mean, we've seen the Lord, His words come to pass. We've seen spiritual things. We even seen small scale miracles. Okay, but there's more to come because the Lord, He said, that we were going to do greater works. All right. Um, um, the faith of a grain of a mustard seed. We're going to move mountains. Okay. For example, governments. Okay. With just a little faith. All right. And we're telling you what's coming upon this earth. Okay. Strength, glory. All right. Faith is going to flourish. Okay. And of course, the wicked going to get what's due to them. Because at the end of all of this, the wicked are going to lose. Okay. And you don't want to be on the wrong side of things when this thing turns, because it's going to turn. It's going to be a spiritual turn. It's people who think that they're going to be able to, people think that money and their strength is going to get them through the times. Well, the Lord's going to reverse that. Okay. And what's going to get you through times is what? The treasures, the spiritual treasures that you stored in heaven, which is the understanding of this truth, garnering the understanding, garnering faith and believing more, you know. Okay, so let's get into it. This is Romans 15:4. All right, it says, for whatsoever things are written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope, because this is all about building hope. Okay, and this is a sure hope. All right, so let's start with 1 Corinthians 10:1. The heading is avoid Israel's mistakes, and we see our people continue in the the same down the same path. All right, and they completely void of discernment. And you got Jake that's reading the Bible and really don't understand where what what role they're playing. They don't know what side they're on. A lot of people believe they're on the right side. You know, you could be on the right side, but you could be in the wrong spirit. You could be on the wrong side and be in the right spirit. And when I say that to say this because there's elect that's scattered. Okay, but there is one truth, as the scriptures say, one Lord, one faith, one baptism. Okay, so there's a group, which what group that is, that has the 100% truth, who is actually doing what the scriptures, all right, or having a mindset of the spirit of this book. Okay, calling for, crying out against wickedness, looking and longing for a kingdom to come, a new world rulership, so to speak. You know, that's the elect, the ones that want to see the establishment of a new kingdom. And I'm talking about, you know, now. All right. We want it that bad, and you're supposed to want it. Okay. So 1 Corinthians 10:1, it says, moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant, now that all our fathers were under the cloud and passed through the sea. Okay. This is the Exodus is dealing with, okay, the Lord delivering Israel out of Egypt. And we know the story. We read it all the time. It's always referenced because it's one of the biggest deliverances, but also it's one of the biggest um, examples that we can pull from, okay, of what not to do. All right. It shows you the character and of people who are desperate and desperation, um, certain and lack of integrity that the people had. Okay, so let's continue, Slakia. It says, and we're all baptized unto Moses in the cloud and in the sea. Okay, and did all eat the same spiritual meat. All right, which was the manna. Okay, and now we're all eating the same spiritual meat now. Okay, so it says, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, right? And that rock was Hamashiach, all right, the chosen or the anointed, okay, because the Lord said he would send the angel before us and to lead us in the way, okay. It said, don't provoke him, okay. And Yahweh Shai, he was that angel then, all right, and he is what? He is the angel now, so to speak, okay, in this time, all right, and he's bringing forth deliverance, okay. So the point is coming. It says, verse 5, it says, but with many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness, okay. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things. And uh, uh, and this is what basically Jake is doing now. They lusting after evil things. Okay, they want the things of the world. They want to be world friendly. You know, um, and that's just not what the Lord is accepting. Okay, there's a certain character, a certain spirit you're supposed to take on. Being that we've been invigorated with this truth, being woken up, okay, and the Lord requires a certain conduct, okay. He requires us to be in a certain spirit that is coming, okay, thoroughly furnished, all right, and with no shame at the appearing of our Lord Yahweh Shai, okay, because most going to be shameful because what? They're not, they don't know the Lord, right? They're they've taken his word in their mouths and they're speaking deceit, guile, which is untruths, all right? They're going off in their teachings, all right? And it's important because you're putting a spirit, these teachings, you know, gotta bring forth a certain mindset, all right? And we want to know Yahweh Shai, all right? And we want to know him thoroughly. I mean, all the way, right? It says, as they also lusted, right? Neither be idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written. Because you can be an idolater based on your belief set, okay? Based on your belief set, you can be an idolater. All right. The people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. See, this was one of the key things that they did that provoked the Lord. They weren't serious. They weren't appreciative. They completely disregarded what was going on and had no understanding on what was taking place. And we're constantly always being reminded of, knowing what this truth is about, knowing the cost or counting the cost, right? So neither let us commit fornication as some of them committed, right? Because they worship other idols, right? They wasn't worshiping the one true God, Yahweh, right? And they were provoking Yahweh Shai, who led them in the way, okay? And fell in one day 320,000, okay? 23,000. Neither let us tempt Hamashiach, the chosen, the anointed one, as some of them also tempted him, tempted. So I said it beforehand. It says in word, destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmur. And you got Jake who murmur, and they murmur against the truth. They murmur against the things that are written. They murmur against essentially the Lord's promises. Okay, we want to believe those promises with all that we have, all our strength. We want to believe it because we're upon us believing. Okay, this seals us for salvation. Okay, it seals us to be saved. Okay, let me see something. All right. 1 John 3:1, it says, behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. Yeah, the Lord raised us up. First and foremost, Yahweh Shai died so that we can be reunited, right, with the Lord. Okay, so what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us. So he allowed that sacrifice, okay, to break down that the beef between him and his people, okay? Because the transgressions and all the evil things that we've done is what kept us from the Lord. And the Lord said, okay, well, he allowed that sacrifice to take place, okay? But only really truly for the true believers, the true worshipers, right? That we should be called the sons of God. Therefore, the world knoweth us not, because it knew him not. All right. Right. And you have many that don't know the Lord, though they be told, they still don't know. It says, beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Is this the one? Oh, yeah. Here's the point. And every man that hath this hope in him purifieth himself, even as he is pure. right? So having this hope within them, okay, that you're the sons of God, you gotta truly believe, okay, okay. So going back, let's get rid of that. All right, just a little bit more than this, and then we're gonna go into these precepts, man. All right. So verse 7, it says, 1 Corinthians 10 and 7, it says, neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Now, the times that we live in, what it called, the Lord calls us to be, to go to the house of mourning, okay? Ecclesiastes 7, okay? And be mournful, okay? Why? Because this bitterness, I mean, well, the contrite spirit is what the Lord accepts, which is going to go into. In fact, let me read it and then I'll make the point. It says, Ecclesiastes 7:2, it is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. Okay, for that is the end of all men. And that's basically the spirit. They was in that festive spirit, the playful spirit. And the problem was that they weren't mindful of what was taking place. Neither did they regard, all right, anything that was happening, the miracles, the overreaching love, the mercy that the Lord had, you know. Okay, you're dealing with a God here. You're dealing with the Most High, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, the All Powerful. And for Him to have mercy at the level that He has it, man, that should show you should show us some appreciation, right? It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. That's right. So you're supposed to lay it to your heart. Okay, so sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance, the heart is made better, right? The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. Because the Lord is coming back to cut off the proud. He's coming to lay low the haughty spirit, the arrogant. And he's coming because he's been blasphemed, he's been talked about, and he's been and wrongfully, all right? And they blaspheme him daily, on the daily. Okay. He created everything on earth. All his creation and all the magnificence behind his creation, and he gets no credit for it. I would be mad. But yet everybody benefits from it. So somebody's gonna have to answer. There's people destroying the earth. There's people that don't want to give respect unto his name. And I'm, you Israelites, man, you don't want to give respect unto his name. Just a few things among many things we could talk about. Okay, so so it says it is better to hear the rebuke of the wise, and that's what's happening, right? It's better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. Okay, and what the rebuke of the wise, that's the men that the Lord has set up to keep you in the way. Okay, to constantly uh, how can I say, sharpen you and lead you and guide you in the right way, the right conduct. Your conversation being in heaven, all right, meaning your conduct, dealing with your conduct, all right. So then, for a man to hear the song of fools, because that's what's playing real loud right now, the song of fools, because they saying, "Oh, you ain't got to worry about, uh, you know, uh, basically, in my own words, you ain't got to worry about the kingdom being established. You ain't got to worry about what the so-called white man is doing. All right, as far as him bringing his new world order, because if you're not, if because you got many that's not paying attention to prophecy, they're not paying attention to the spirit, and they're going to be cut off because what they ignored the calling. Okay, they rejected the time of visitation. Okay, in many instances, this was the case with Israel. There was always prophets set up, and they ignored them, and what happened? They got judged, and that's what's about to happen again. Okay, so it's just for as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool this also is vanity. So you think the Lord is very annoyed right now, all right? Especially of those that's not taking it serious, okay? And that's why, we're going through so much hardship because what? Um, I mean, well, at the reality of going through so much hardship that there's a lot of pain behind it, right? Uh, and we have absolutely nothing to laugh about, okay? I mean, we human, we get it, but everything ain't about a joyous, happy, fun time. We're in slavery, and we're in the worst times ever. Okay, we're in the worst times ever.